welcome to a special Patreon exclusive episode of Bronze Age Monsters, the show where we wade into the weirdest and wildest waters of the comic books of the 1970s. This season on BAM, we've been talking about Bronze Age buffet. Excuse me. This season on BAM, we've been talking about a Bronze Age buffet of short-lived books with supernatural heroes. But today we're talking about Jericho Drum, a.k.a. the man who lived twice, a.k.a. the Lord of the Loa, a.k.a. the master of all reptiles, a.k.a. Brother Voodoo. I'm Matt Howell.
I'm Jacob Balcom.
Thanks for joining us this week. If you are seeing and hearing us, then you must be a Patreon supporter of the show, and we thank you for that. You make all these fun little things we do like this happen, and we hope you enjoy this. If you've been listening along with us this season, you know that we were really digging Brother Voodoo, and we were bummed that he didn't make it more than 4 issues into Strange Tales before he got canceled, and we've been taking every chance we can to visit him again. We covered him in Tales of the Zombie issue number 6, where they wrapped up the Black Talon storyline. And I noted back then that the issue, the story that happened in Tales of the Zombie number 10, picks up immediately where this left off, that last story left off. So I thought, let's dive in and do kind of a thing. Instead of just give you a PDF of the art, let's do a mashup where there's video, there's the art we're talking about, and we're going through the story and giving Brother Voodoo, Jericho, and Daniel a proper send-off.
They deserve a proper send-off. I mean, it was so unceremoniously canceled that, I'm excited we're going to do this. It was a good idea.
Me too. And this is actually a long issue, even for a normal comic. This is from a Curtis magazine, Tales of the Zombies. So it's actually a full 21 pages. And so we're not going to dilly-dally much. We're going to dive right into this. But I do want to talk about the cover because any chance I have to talk about Earl Norm or show Earl Norm's art, I'm happy to do. Another gorgeous fucking painting from him. Here we have Simon Garth, who is, this is the last issue of this magazine, by the way. It was canceled after this. Simon Garth does not even appear in this one, so this is just probably something they told Earl Norm to paint. Just said he'd make some exciting situations for a zombie to interact in, and he did his genius stuff. So it says, "Dare any man battle Brother Voodoo," and we see him climbing up on a dock, dripping with water from the sea. And there's some like Disney / like Hardy Boys thugs. Like, I love that the guy has this striped shirt on. Like, it's like such a Disney, right? He's like Pirates of the Caribbean type of thug. Yeah. And there's a damsel, Jacob. So I'm going to have a little bit of this Westward whiskey.
Rittenhouse rye for me to the damsel.
Honestly, man, if anybody from Marvel ever hears this, are you guys going to put together an Earl Norm book of covers? And I mean, come on. I know the guy did all kinds of work outside of the comics industry, but just his covers alone.
I know.
I can't get enough of them. I just sit and look at them. These are all just great, like desktop screensavers and whatever. Like, they're just gorgeous.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah, let's jump in. So before the story gets started, we have a Don McGregor, who's the editor at this time of the Curtis magazines, gives us a little prologue. He says, "The partial resurrection of a voodoo haunted editorial." And so basically he goes on to tell this kind of funny story, how the art for the Tales of the Zombie issue is called "The Partial Resurrection of Simon Garth." Says the script was sent to Rico Rival for illustration. And somewhere around Honolulu, the mail was diverted, and 20 pages of that nefarious tale, the last 20 pages, ended up in Guam. So yeah, this is something that did happen from time to time. This was one of the downsides of using a lot of the Filipino artists, because really, I mean, a couple of the major ones did live in America, but I think the majority still lived in the Philippines, and their shit was just mailed, you know? So yeah, it's crazy, right?
So you're saying, like, there's the Nestor Redondo group in New York, and the rest of them probably still lived in the Philippines and worked by mail.
Definitely. I mean, in hell, Nestor Redondo may have lived. I mean, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, Tony DeZuniga definitely lived in America. Alfredo Alcala did. There's definitely a handful. But looking through, like I've referenced many times before, comic book artist number 4, the kind of encyclopedia of Filipino comic artists, most of them still lived in their home country.
That's so
So
cool.
this shit would happen.
Yeah, but that's the downside, right?
That is the downside. It's, we've talked about it before. The Filipino wave was so amazing. It had some problematic starting points to it. And, but I don't know. I think the majority of them stayed in their own home country, still were able to do the Filipino comics that was their whole industry there. But somehow they were able to save enough money still, even with postage and everything. So I don't know. Makes me wonder how much these Filipino artists were actually paid.
Right. And today they would either work digitally, like a lot of artists do, or work physical medium and have a flatbed scanner that Marvel provided, and they would just scan them high res and send them through an FTP. So, yeah. So somebody somewhere, I wonder if they ever got them. Do we know if that story ever got collected?
I don't know. We didn't look into that, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. I'm curious. I'm sure it had to have shown up. Like, would it just drop in the ocean? Like,
no, I thought it might have got misdelivered with like another package or something in Guam, and somebody just was getting a letter from a loved one, and there was a strange large package as well, and they opened it up and like, fucking cool. I don't think I would give back Rico Reval art, even if I had no idea what the fuck was going on.
Nope, I would not either. I would hold on to that, not tell anybody.
Oh man.
So yeah, but it was pretty cool. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, let's go on to our opening page. Title of our story is The Resurrection of Papa Jambo, and stories by Doug Moench, art by Tony DeZuniga. If you listen to our first season, we've talked a lot about Doug Moench and talked about how amazing he is. Tony DeZuniga has showed up a lot this season, which we're thrilled by. But yeah, as far as bios go, we have talked a lot about these two. So you're just gonna have to know that we love and respect these geniuses, and we're just gonna jump into their story.
Yep.
So we open on a secluded graveyard outside of Port-au-Prince. And it says there's a hushed air of sinister expectancy, a bated terror of dread, which is shattered by the abrupt burst of a gnarled, death-ravaged hand trailing, spewing cascades of moist grave loam.
Oh, Doug.
Loved that. Fucking Doug, man. It's
His
so
language
good.
here is crazy.
It's crazy and awesome. And as the panels go on, there's this hand, one hand we see bursting out of the grave, and then the next panel says a blindly groping hand which seems to serve as the signal for the identical defilement of the graves surrounding it. And God, Tony's got this. The perspective on that third panel especially, I love. It's just, because you see, we kind of have moved in. You see that original hand, another one is coming up to the left. We see a full Zuvembi coming up from behind. And it's just really, really fucking cool. And then the bottom big panel shows, it says, a chill breeze ripples through the somber tombstones, and the intangible sentience of the graveyard itself tremors with the knowledge that its graves have been defiled from within, and that the perpetrators of this foul desecration are dead men, corpses which for years have lain dormant in the graveyard's bosom. And we see a leader rise and says, "Rise, brothers, rise to the command of Dramambu, the Death Lord. Rise from the cold embrace of death, that you may walk this night, spreading the seeds of death." And it's a killer opening page. And this is just, I love stories that were just intended for black and white. And I feel like a lot of the artists that we've talked about, even this season and before, particularly the Filipino artists, are just incredible at it. They use the medium to have it just be so rich and amazing to look at. And this opening page is absolutely all of those things.
Yeah, I agree. And it's such a good fit for the genre of storytelling with the Filipino artists like this. And, like that bottom large panel where the black is a positive here, whereas it would be seen as like almost like a negligence or something in a color comic. They would say it needs to be blue or it needs to be purple. Like it's a color book. People are going to feel cheated if it's a bunch of black, or maybe it's too expensive. I don't know, but I mean, they embrace the blacks in the black and white art, and it's such a different feel just across the tone, right? I absolutely love it. I looked this Jambo guy up, and this is his one appearance. I mean, I can see why, but I mean,
yep,
it's keeping up that, this isn't Ween anymore, not writing, but they still have that Werewolf by Night type of thing where you got to just burn every villain you meet.
Yep.
God forbid somebody come back and raise the stakes or something. But man, just seeing DeZuniga's Zuvembis. I mean, no shade to Colon. This actually has a lot of echoes to Strange Tales number 171, where he met Baron Samedi.
Yeah, it does.
But, and Colon did amazing stuff. I can still vividly remember Colon's art and how haunting that first sequence was, where just cold open on Brother Voodoo stalking through a cemetery in the middle of the night and hands start coming out and grabbing his ankles. Very different artists, very different approaches. I love them both, but seeing the putrefaction, that coupled with Doug's language to this whole thing, just talking about like suppuration or whatever. Like I had to look that word up. It means like festering, like pus producing, festering wounds. I was like, oh my God, the language is so gross. It all reads like Vincent Price's rap in the middle of fucking Thriller. Like it's just all just completely gross and lurid and just gleeful about it.
It is fucking awesome.
All right. Oh, another thing I want to mention, Jacob. So the only other mention I saw of Jambo was in Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, number 16 by Roy and Dan Thomas.
Oh, nice.
And it was in one of those Book of the Vishanti in the back, the little things that cover all the magical history of Marvel.
Yeah, we covered some of those. Yeah,
and what's weird that we're going to find out here is that I'm a country lawyer here, my friend. I'm presenting a case to you and to the people of the world, all comic fans. Since the story was published to today, people have conflated Charles Lejeune and Papa Jambo as the same person. I'm going to be presenting Exhibit A through C throughout this whole thing, that is an error in people's interpretation of this story.
Oh, wow.
Because they're not. They're two different characters.
They're not. They're completely different characters.
Like,
wow.
I read it. Right. I read that thing and I was like, if you go to Papa Jambo's Marvel like bio page, it says real name Charles Lejeune. Like it's that.
Oh, that's fucked up.
It's just infected. Like somebody read it wrong and it's infected everything. So we need to fix this here today.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so jumping on. We go back to that mansion we love so much in New Orleans, and Brother Voodoo is there, and we get this really nice close-up of him. Love the detailed line work on his face that he does, and his eyes are big as headlights. He looks like very sensitive and thoughtful in the way that DeZuniga draws him. And I love this little thing here. So in the middle of a conversation, he says, "As the Lord of the Living Loire, I must refuse your thanks as unnecessary. But as Jericho Drum, I accept it most appreciatively, Lord." That reminded me of that Mr. Show thing, like the two rich guys that get along just fine. They would have you believe that they're good friends, and they are.
They are.
So I love that he's just sitting there in his house with that snake, Papa Jambo, wrapped around his forearm. And we see Laura Lee again. And I was excited to see her. Again, this picks up, like this is the night after he saved her back at his place. Although I believe that story in 6 ended with Samuel Tate arriving on scene. Like the last panel is literally like, oh, there's my dad. So conveniently, we'll forget that. So she's thanking him for saving her from Black Talon. And, she said, you refer to yourself almost as two men, the Lord of the Loire and Jericho Drum. And she's also surprised that the snake is so docile around him. So he gets an opportunity here to explain to everyone that he is the master of all reptiles and that he is, in fact, two men because his brother Daniel's soul was bonded to him through a voodoo rite. And it also bequeathed to him an immunity to raging fire. So, just a nice little dump there at the beginning here to get people who have not maybe read issue 6 or any of the Strange Tales stories who this guy is. But look at this art, man. Just gorgeous.
Yeah, you're right. The like profile of Brother Voodoo. It's very it's not as harsh of lines that has been used in his face before. DeZuniga, especially in that, there's a lot of softness. There's a lot of shadow. It's not as harsh as he normally is, but he's also with Laura Lee, so he's not going to be, he's courting. He's
True.
not, he's he's not trying to scare Zuvembis. So, no, this is great. Again, Laura Lee looks great here, but gotta say, Colin does her a little better.
I think
I'm
so.
just gonna say,
I might prefer his Laura Lee.
I definitely prefer his Laura Lee. No shade on Tony, who is a genius.
Yeah, not at all. Nice angles here on this page, though, as we're just moving on. Just gorgeous. That's that kind of flying camera angle that the real masters do. A hack would just say, if you had a camera and you set it up, what would this be like on a soap opera? And a genius is like, how can I draw this 8 different ways on one page?
All right, so next page. He goes on to explain that Papa Jambo presided over the ceremony that helped him assimilate his dead brother's spirit. And but then, Bamboo, his servant, interrupts this origin retelling. And he says, Master, a man wishes to see you. He is quite insistent. His name is Samuel Tate. Laura Lee says, my father, he didn't know I was here. So he comes in and, is yelling at Laura Lee, I thought I told you to stay away from this man. And she says, I'm old enough to govern my own actions. He says, but you're not old enough to remember the old ways, the filthy ways of voodoo. And this man is a servant of voodoo, which I thought was a little harsh, a little more harsh than normally is. I wasn't like before. He was always just like, that guy's a charlatan. Right. But here Moench is having him be like, no, voodoo is disgusting. Like he remembers the old ways of voodoo somehow.
Yeah. And I can only think that this is setting up something that Doug does later on with the villain, like this new versus old as this theme, this leitmotif that runs through this whole thing. So that was interesting. Yeah,
it is interesting.
Also, though, Jacob, is Samuel, did he just become a dad today? Because did he miss reverse psychology class in police school? Yeah. Like, you stay away from that man. I don't want you ever coming around here again.
No, he hasn't learned that lesson or has read or watched or seen anything from all of human history. So, that's the best way to make your daughter run the opposite way.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty dumb. But I also like I love Tony's face on Tate too in that third panel, though. It's really cool. I just like his style for faces. This issue is, he does it, but it's a little, I don't know, it's a little different, I think, than even some of his other Curtis Mag work. There's a delicacy to his faces here, which stood out to me. And I know his work pretty well. And I don't know if you noticed that too, but it was different.
There's a stylized softness, not in the, technical stuff, like the approach to the subjects. Totally. I picked on that immediately. That first close up of Jericho, I was like, whoa, he's doing something different here.
Yeah, it's almost, it's not tending towards photorealism, but a little more. It's not as like a stylized comic drawing. He's a little, it is. And Tony can do that really easily. And he's done that in comics, way before. But yeah, I just noticed, I thought it was interesting. But Laura Lee is just, going on like, I don't care. He saved my life. If voodoo helped him save my life, well, I'm glad he serves the old ways. And then she kind of twists the knife a little bit with her dad. He's just like, or need I remind you, Father, you as chief of detectives at the New Orleans police, with all your modern scientific methods, proved to be remarkably ineffective in rescuing me. Ooh, that hurts.
Yeah. Your
and
penis will be arriving in the mail in 3 days.
It's like, but then I love, and Brother Voodoo's just sitting back, cool as a cucumber. And then he's like, forgive me for intruding, Mr. Tate, but since you were not aware that your daughter was visiting me, I assume you have a reason for coming here other than partaking in this altercation. And then Tate's like, yes, I do. So he's being thrown off like by everyone in that room.
Yeah, he's rattled.
Yeah, he is rattled. He looks it.
I love that interaction. Okay, so he explains that a letter arrived at the New Orleans police headquarters. It was postmarked from Haiti, and it was addressed to Brother Voodoo. And so he figured, it must, or Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's he's like, I figure it must be relative to someone as important as you, being a smartass. And Brother Voodoo's like, I'll look over that pointed innuendo, Mr. Tate. And he takes it, opens it up again, and really nice, just a little close up of him. Just DeZuniga's range never ceases to amaze me. Like, I was just thinking back to some earlier stuff this season, like I think it was the Golem stuff, or there'd be like a close up of the girl of Abrams, whatever her name was, Abraham, whatever. And like, he'd do that like Zipatone stuff for shading. He just does so much stuff. Whenever I feel like I'm settled into what his style is, anytime he pulls a rug out and completely switches up into something entirely new stylistically and stretches himself.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. There was one like X-Men story where he either did the art or was the inker. And it was a comic story. I mean, it was a color comic. And it's just trying to fit into a house style on a superhero book was just death for him. It just took everything. And I don't know if this is Ramita being like, oh, no, you can't do that. But then there's the other thing. I mean, yeah, Tony worked on a few of them, and some of the other Filipinos worked on superhero books, but the vast majority, the Filipinos were not given top tier books. They were used a lot, but and I don't know. And you can say maybe it's because their style fit the horror books or the other weird books. And that's true. It does. Mm-hmm. But, people have also been like, some kind of racism going on in that one too. At Marvel and DC. Mm-hmm. Like the Filipinos, they're just like, oh no, you're here to draw all these horror comics. I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome that they did, but also a little weird when you're like, oh, but which Filipino drew Superman? You're like, oh, not many, if any. Yeah,
it's interesting, and we need to get a doc going. Figure out how much of that was choice, how much of that was,
It's so frustrating. Years ago, I mean, this is like 5 or 6 years now. There's a Facebook page still about it. There was some documentary that was made about the Filipino comic artist by a Filipino man. And I don't know. I mean, it's so like nebulous. I don't know if it was like finished or if they were like trying to get the money to finish it or if it had been shown at a festival, but I think it's called Illustrated By, if I'm correct. It's something like that, but it's, yeah. And I've just never seen anything of it again. I mean, I haven't looked in like a year, but I was looking regularly, just being like, okay, where is this? So there's something out there.
Was it a trailer, like on the page? Was there like footage you got to see?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but just like a trailer. I think you can still find it. I mean, I think if you look up Filipino comics documentary, I'm sure it'll come up. And maybe it's been finished in the last year. But yeah, really disappointing. I know we've talked so much about, the Filipino artists, and I really feel like there should be something, but there's just not. Like I said, I mean, they've the main comic history magazines, you got Back Issue, you got Alter Ego, and all hail to friend of the show now, Roy Thomas, for making both of those history magazines that are extremely important. Drinking to Roy for that one.
Yeah.
But those articles in there, Alcala just got a couple of years ago, he just got a full issue, like cover and giant article about him, but that was just in the last couple of years. So I don't know. I really wish they would get the full treatment so people would understand, because people like us understand, but not a lot of comic people know how great the Filipinos were in the 70s.
Yes. And the other problem is that we're running out of time. I was thinking about stuff we could do for our members. And I was thinking we joked about finding Petra and interviewing her. Maybe we could actually probably do it now. And she's 74. Like, we're running out of time. If she's still alive, she's 74.
Yeah.
I was stalking her online this week.
I was a little bit. So there's a bunch of there's Facebook profiles of a woman in Germany named Petra Skotis.
Okay.
And I'm just like, okay, we have to start. We're just going to have to start just reaching out blindly.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I mean, I'm sure some comic person has tried to get a hold of her at some point. I don't know, but maybe not.
I think if she had more sustained runs on things, I mean, if you look at her, bibliography, it's just kind of like handful of X-Men, a handful of whatever, a couple DC things. Like, I think if she sat down somewhere and did one run with another writer or something, people would have probably picked up on her more. But it just feels like there's just a random blog post here and there, people saying, here's her working on this issue of this thing from 1986. And it's just kind of like,
literally no biographical information about her exists on the internet.
Jerry
photo.
told us more than anything I found online.
Didn't you just die when he said that, though? I keep thinking about it. Where it's like, yeah, Len and I, she was across the hall from us, and we saw her artwork, and we were like, whoa, that's too weird. Like she's illustrating the Necronomicon or something across the hall from them, and they're like, ooh, geez, your stuff is too weird, but can you color? So I want to see that art.
Yeah. I think it was, I think our friend Mark Nivens, I think, said something like, you guys are so wigged out over these female colorists. You should just do a little mini doc, interview them and whatever. It's like, can we find Glynis Oliver? Can we, I don't know. She's also in her 70s now.
Yep. Everyone is. So yeah, like I said, you're absolutely right. We are running out of time.
Yeah.
Not everybody was a young buck like Jerry Conway.
Nope. No. Okay. Well,
sorry.
No, it's just like we talk about this a lot, and it's just been coming up a lot for me recently. So I'm getting more and more serious. So it's less joking every time it comes up now. Is where I'm kind of thinking, well, maybe we should do something. I feel like it's kind of our duty at this point.
It is. Well, maybe I'll just start reaching out. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Just sending messages, just being like, hey. All right.
Also, just putting this out there before we move on. Scott Edelman is on Instagram and he's active. So if we want to talk about the creator, talk to the creator of the Scarecrow about the Scarecrow, I think we could probably talk him into it.
Yeah, we definitely could talk him into that. That would be interesting.
I think so. Okay.
Yeah.
Back to the story at hand. So, so Brother Voodoo reads the letter that was delivered to the police department. And then he stands up in this awesome, like, low angle shot. And he says, "Bamboo, my cloak at once, like post haste, forthwith." As he crumples the letter in his hand. I love that. In the next panel, he's just whipping the cape around onto himself, which I don't know how it attaches magnets. So who knows? But they have to journey to Haiti immediately. And he just tells his guests, "Hey, look, I'm really sorry we have to leave so abruptly, but feel free to avail yourselves of our hospitality as long as you need to." So basically just saying, let yourselves out and feed the snake before you go. As he and Bamboo sprint out the thing. And it's just like fucking Batman, like, farewell for now.
I would love it if they just, if Laura Lee and her dad are just like, well, let's see what's in the fridge. I mean, this is a nice place. Let's just hang out for a bit.
There's lots of rum, I assume. I don't know.
Lots of rum. All right, yeah, on the next page says, several hours later, a sleek jet streaks southward. And Bamboo asks, he's like, I never asked, I love this. I thought this was interesting. He says, "Master, may your humble servant inquire as to reasons for our journey's urgency." Jericho says, "Bamboo, you are humble and my servant by your own choice. I have never asked to be addressed as your master, nor have I ever kept secrets from you." I thought that was really cool. It's like this little window into their relationship that we hadn't gotten before. This is a story point that Doug is bringing in.
Yeah, I like that note that this is a choice that Bamboo has made. He chose to follow him once he defeated, who did he defeat? I don't remember the first dude.
Damballa?
Oh, Damballa, yeah.
Yeah.
So he just kind of, but I like that. That's a really nice note. Like you're saying, a nice character note of like, you're not bound to me by anything. You choose to be here and you don't have to call me master. We're friends, damn it.
We're friends. But yeah, Jericho tells him, "The note I received merely read, 'My husband came to me last night. It was signed by a friend of mine, Sarah Lejeune.'" Is that how you're pronouncing it?
Yeah. It's French. Okay. It means the young or the youth.
Yeah. Sarah, and he goes on to say, "Sarah's husband has been dead for 6 years." And so that shows immediately why he just levitated that cloak over to himself and just jetted out of there. And so, that third panel though, again, like you see Bamboo and you see, and it's the weird softness that is such a cool stylistic choice.
I love it.
So then we cut to the village beyond Port-au-Prince is silent, its mud streets darkly desolate, the doors of its squalid huts securely shut, and its people cowering behind those doors. So, we cut to two of them, Sarah Lejeune and her fatherless daughter. And she says, Mama, was it really Papa we saw last night? Will he come again? Sarah says, yes, child, it was your Papa, but I pray to Giddy Nimbo that he will never come again. So yeah, this is like kind of upsetting. Like this whole part of the story is fairly disturbing. Like in a lot of ways, just from the family angle, and it's upsetting.
Yeah. All the stuff involving the daughter is upsetting. I mean, this entire story. Never could have got away with this in a comic, in a 4-color comic.
No, it's super freaky.
So Exhibit A, okay, on the plane here, he's saying, he got this letter from a friend of mine, Sarah Lejeune, and it says, blah, 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 Sarah's husband has been dead. So first of all, if this triangle is Brother Voodoo, Papa Jambo, and Sarah Lejeune, obviously she's the least important person of this figure. So he wouldn't be referring to Papa Jambo, who Bamboo knows. He knows intimately Brother Voodoo's entire background. He wouldn't refer to Papa Jambo obliquely as Sarah's husband.
No, he wouldn't.
And I see on the bottom of the page evidence here of why people might be getting confused, because the daughter's talking about her father as Papa. So people are just going, oh, Papa Jambo, same person. Very, very shallow read of this story if people are that confused that easily.
Well, honestly, I think you're right. And it's that fucking weird thing about the internet and no one fact checking anything.
Nope.
One guy says this, one little Marvel blog post, and that's just how it is.
Yep. Just
no one's reading this shit. So yeah.
Right. Misinformation is not ill will. Misinformation is just is being misinformed, and it spreads. And like you said, people copy and paste. Unfortunately, now with the rise of AI, entire blog posts and novels and stuff are being written by people going around and finding kernels of bad information, and then robots just building it into an entire work of art around it. Right.
God, it's so.
I was just reading an article about how there's AI written books about fungus picking. And so there's these books on Amazon that are self-published, written by AI, that are telling people how to pick mushrooms that are safe to eat that are fucking wrong. They're dangerous.
Isn't that terrifying?
There's mycologists saying, don't fucking read these books, please. This is poison.
Oh my God.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's bad.
So that last panel, man, speaking of the black and white versus a 4-color, like that rotting Charles Lejeune approaching his own house with that black. I mean, look at the hillside and the trees on it, just ink, just abyssal black. Ugh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. Fucking awesome.
And it makes it more foreboding and more disturbing to me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I've been loving these close-ups of these characters so far. However, on the next page, this first panel to me is a little wonky. The mom, it's one of those cases where if you cover up one half of her face, that looks fine. If you cover up the other half of her face, it looks fine. But together, that she looks like Chunk from Goonies.
Yeah, I just feel like her face should have been more delineated and outlined on the right hand. It looks unfinished and weird.
I don't mind that part. I see what you're saying. Now that you're saying that, I see what you're saying. I'm just saying her eyes, like the shape of her eyes and the size and relationships to each other don't fit. So it looks like,
no, you're right.
Half of her face is melting. Maybe he's channeling Jonah Hex, like pre-Hex assignment. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, a little funky art there, but the daughter's saying, why Mama, why don't you want Papa to come home? And she explains that he was a Zuvembi. He wasn't real. And by the way, we don't need to say Zuvembi in a magazine, do we?
No, we don't. I don't fucking understand that. The magazine's called Tales of the Zombie.
So it's just consistency of the character so far, but right?
I guess, but it's so dumb. Weird. It's dumb.
But she explains he was a Zuvembi. He was one of the Walking Dead. As he breaks down the door, God damn, all the detail in these panels is just gorgeous. And that third panel, as he's punching through the door and they're cowering in the background in the lantern light, that looks like Jack Davis. Does that not look like Jack Davis?
It totally looks like Jack Davis. It's a great call. Yeah.
And so sadly, the heartbreaking, the little daughter says, Papa, it's Papa. And she starts to run towards him. And then, he's reaching out, breaking outside of the panel into the gutter. As he's coming towards them, the mom's pulling her away in a panic. And she says, "What are you doing to Mama? Please don't hurt her." This is just all heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. It's fucked up.
Dada came home. Dead Dada came home. And now dead Dada's hurting Mommy. I mean, dude, this is dark stuff.
It's super fucking dark. But yeah, you're right. The detail on his fist and arm as he's crunching through the door, it's disgusting. Like it gives you shivers. It's just gross.
It's great.
So yeah, it continues on the next page. Okay, yeah, this is a 6-panel page that is just super fucking brutal. Charles Lejeune grabs his wife and strangles her in front of their daughter. Panel 3 is just this heartbreaking close up on the young girl's face with just, with tears rolling down, and she's saying, "Killing her," finishing the Papa, you are killing her, and then killing her as she kind of, she faints, she goes unconscious. And then, there's not, what is there, like 10 words on this page? And it doesn't need anything more. That's even almost a lot.
Yeah.
Because each panel is just so heartbreakingly rendered. The one that I kept, every panel is great, but the bottom 2, I think, are just astounding. Like the one on the left, and they're very different. Like the one on the left there's a lot of light. There's a lot of white left on the page as Charles is reaching down for his daughter. And then that last panel, what the fuck? It's so gorgeous. A lot more blacks, but he's tenderly picking her up and kind of cradling her. You're just like, oh, fuck. That's so sad. It's so fucking sad.
Especially when you find out why he's being careful with her, because she needs to be preserved for a later act.
Oh, God.
DeZuniga's anatomy, his A&P, anatomy and physiology work on this page is mind-blowing. The Zuvembi and every panel he's in is fucking like Da Vinci level perfect, like body studies. Those are note perfect representations of the human form. Just insane.
Yeah,
like
you're
that
right.
one where he's scooping her up. Oh, man.
I know. Yeah, you're right. I don't know. We've seen a lot of amazing artists, and it is when you get to this level, a colon or I don't know. DeZuniga's goddamn near top 5 for me all time. And you're right. When you're doing something, when it's a Wrightson, when it's someone like this, their anatomy and physiology is so perfect. These high level of artists, they've done so much study. Like they may have been self-taught, but they've studied so much to get to this level. And this is where you see the payoff to where, you're right. It's perfect.
Yep. Absolute perfection. Oh, okay. So we cut away to where he was going with the little girl. And we see the villain from page 1 saying, "Excellent, brother, you have sent another to death, that she may soon join us in our legion of the walking dead." I'm really digging this dude's design, by the way.
It's pretty cool. He's a little cartoony, but
he's a little
the design
cartoony.
is badass.
Yeah, when you have like these rotting corpses around him, he looks silly compared to them. But at the same time, like he's wearing a skull mask. He has like a skeleton bodysuit on, and again, it's absurd in this context. But at the same time, it's that same type of like full circle creepiness where it's like with like Norman Osborn, where it's like, he's so fucking crazy. He grabbed a rubber Halloween goblin mask and put it on, and that makes it creepy, even though it's absurd.
Yeah.
Like it just keeps cycling around on itself and getting creepy again, because it's like, that dude's so crazy. He thinks he looks scary, and that scares me.
Yeah, it is scary. He's putting on the skull cod piece, and he's just insane enough to where like, oh no, that's bad.
Yeah,
like I'm not laughing.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Like Rick James is going to probably buy that in an auction in a couple of years, but right now it's just weird. And he has like a breastplate that looks like it's made out of like rib bones or something. Like, it's just, it probably has like gross, like putrefied flesh on it, like all the little pieces. Like it's just, this guy's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And then, so he's stoked that the Charles has captured the girl alive, and the plan is to sacrifice her to the Loa of Death. And I had to double check. I was like, isn't that Baron Samedi? And he's not the Loa of Death. That's not like his catchphrase, but that's like one of the things he's associated with, right? So I guess
think so, yeah.
Without naming him, they're saying basically that would be Baron Samedi. Then we cut back to the airport at Port-au-Prince, and they're disembarking the plane, and Jericho says, "Now, Bamboo, we must rent an automobile." And I just sat there for a minute after I read that panel. I was like, why is that so weird? And I was like, it's weird to think of Jericho Drum driving a car, let alone renting one, going up to a rental desk and saying, "Hi, I'm Jericho Drum. Here's my ID. Here's my American Express card. I need to rent a sedan for 2 days."
I requested a medium sedan. I see that you might not have one.
Yeah. And there's nothing in Fire Engine Red. Damn it. Okay.
No,
just the cape.
Nope.
All right. Yep. All right. No, it's not a big deal.
No. So then he gets into his Geo Metro and puts on a seatbelt. You know?
I also requested a club be included, but this is Haiti. I mean, so yeah, they drive off to that village, and it's quiet as a graveyard. And he says, "I do not like the looks of Sarah Lejeune's hut. The door is splintered, indicating both a forced entry and that not even the fastest jet has brought us here in time." So it didn't matter. They crumpled the thing and grabbed his cloak and took off and took the immediate flight. It's too late.
No, I mean, that's I don't know. It made me laugh to where I'm just like, did you really think it was? I mean, maybe, I don't know. But he spent all that time in the airport lounge. He's reading Jet. He's just having a drink. And, you know, it just takes a while. Traveling to from Louisiana to Haiti, it takes a little while. Yeah.
So honestly, the first time I read this, for this reading, because I didn't recall this at all when I read it 20-some years ago, I wasn't expecting it to be escalated that fast either. Like, I mean, I thought she was saying my husband's back. I thought it was him going to be coming to investigate, you know, a little lower stakes, a little more slow ramp up to where we got to. So I wasn't as surprised, but reading Jet.
Yeah.
In the terminal. You're funny. Oh boy.
Okay. Oh, before we leave this page, that second panel, the face of Charles Lejeune on that, goddamn, it's super scary. That is going to be in my nightmares.
Yeah, the way he does the undead in here are just amazing, and I love that they're proper undead. I know that wasn't Gene Colan or Len Wein's fault in issue 171, but still,
it wasn't.
Having an actual dead body walking around with pupilless eyes. And just a gape mouth is so haunting.
Yeah, no, none of these guys going to tear off their costumes. Ha, I work for AIM. Yeah. You know, like, yeah, that's not going to happen, which is good. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, next page. There's a really cool, you're right. The angles, like Tony's angles are incredible.
Fire.
And like, yeah. So these first three panels, especially. So in the first one, Jericho is standing, over her body and says, "It is true, my friend, there are bits of decomposed flesh on Sarah's body. The entry was forced by a Zuvembi, a dead man who walks." The second panel went, "But Sarah had a young daughter whom I must find. So while you attend Sarah's corpse, Bamboo, I must go to the graveyard." It's a crazy third panel there. It's really, it's amazing. It's a little bit keep on trucking, but it's amazing in a weird way. That's a weird panel, right?
Oh yeah. And do you remember, this vividly reminded me of the second issue of Brother Voodoo 170 when he is going through the trials, like when Papa Jambo's training him. There was a panel much like this one where we're like, it looks like he's being sucked into a black hole and like his limbs are just like spirographing out. Like, it's very much like that. And I love it.
I do too. I mean, it totally works. You're like, oh God. But then, at the bottom, so he goes to the graveyard, and we see, how are we pronouncing that? It's, how are you doing it? It's Dramabu. Okay. Yeah. Dramabu. So we see Dramabu. He says, "As all you know, my brothers, the incursions of modern society threaten our homeland. Machines fill our air with smoke. Factories poison our waters. Concrete chokes our forests. We who once lived in a paradise now find ourselves in the midst of hell. I went to the school, my brothers, to learn what modern society offers to try to help our land, but I found that modern society offers nothing but death. So I have returned to the old ways and rescued you from death, that together we may fight the new ways, fight the new death. Fucking awesome speech.
I love
and I was
that.
reading that. I'm just like, is he a bad guy? Like, it's so cool. And Moench has done this before. You know, this is kind of his thing. Like, he does kind of rail against modern society, against, you know, and I mean, I know ecology was kind of in the mix in the 70s for sure. But Moench leans heavily into that. He's like, no, we are fucking up the planet. We are fucking up the planet enough that when you're reading this, you're like, oh, okay, well, he's kind of right. He's not wrong.
I never have an issue with any of the villains that have this approach or motivation for anything. However, we don't know if he's really being honest here, but later that's called into question. But I always like characters like this, like Firebrand, that guy. I think it was an Iron Man villain that was like an anti-corporate, anti-whatever, like capitalist.
Yeah.
Like, I always love those guys.
Yeah, as far as, you know, people with our inclinations, it's difficult to be like, no, he's a bad guy, even though he's about to sacrifice a child. So, you know,
Don't get hung up in the details, Jacob. You're right. The ends justify the means.
You're right. Every single time. I always forget that. But in that bottom panel, I mean, my God, yeah, the child is you know, tied on this altar, and there's all these insane Zuvembis around her. And it's super scary. And I love how Dramabu, his like staff with a little, like, you know, skull on it is actually breaking the gutter and going into that top panel, which I think is really cool. It's an amazing page.
I love that it's not even a proper altar. Like, they've taken just stakes and a rope and like made a makeshift altar in the graveyard, because her being there was like a bonus. Like,
yeah,
he didn't know she was going to be an option. So now he's got a sacrifice to make.
Yeah.
And I love that ring, the wreath of Zuvembis all along the bottom and the upper right part of this panel, just kind of hanging out, all the little just detail.
Yeah, it's so fucking cool.
So yeah, this is what I was talking about, by the way, early on when we're saying, you know, Samuel Tate, like saying filthy old voodoo, blah, blah, blah. Kind of a counterpoint to this. I don't know how much it lands, but I mean, he's saying voodoo is dirty and old, and the new ways are, you know, clean, shiny progress, and this guy's rolling against that. So I mean, I guess I'm not sure how fully developed these are, but at least they're interesting positions for characters to have.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, in these few pages, we have gotten both sides of that. And, you know, Moench at this point, you know, he was trying cool stuff. And we've read enough of his stuff in the Curtis mags to be like, yeah, he stretches out. When he's not, you know, code hindered, he really stretches out into cool adult themes.
Yeah, I think that he thrives in this environment where he doesn't have any constraints.
Yeah.
So on the next page, he says, "You are all within my command, brothers." He's speaking to his army of Zuvembis. "But we are a small army. To increase our numbers, we must first increase my Hungan powers." If you recall, Hungans are voodoo priests. And he says, "To achieve that, we must appease the law of death by sacrificing this young girl to his cold embrace." So, yeah, if you're wondering why she was tied up, it's because she's going to be killed.
Yeah.
And then we get a cool close-up to, again, this guy who is wearing a skull mask, which, again, not to belabor it, but like, it is creepier because he's so into this, he thinks a skull mask looks cool and scary, and that's crazy.
So weird. It's crazy.
But he's saying the law of death will not accept a sacrifice by my hand. It must be a more powerful Hungan. He doesn't have the power to do this. And so he points to the one grave of this graveyard that did not yield up a corpse to be reanimated and controlled by him. He says, "This is the one unopened grave. He was the only one among you to resist my call to renewed life, the only one to defy me. Therefore, we must unite and exert our concerted will in the cause of his resurrection. Join me now, brothers, in the rites of living death." Then slowly, ever so slowly, a sonorous chant laces the murky graveyard. Arms are raised in unspeakable supplication to the corrupt and bloated voodoo lord of death. I don't know about bloated, but I think, again, this is Baron Samedi. But if folks have been paying attention, page 1, this is a resurrection of Papa Jambo. I think you know who the one character would be at all of Haiti that even in death, rest in power. even in death, has the power to avoid being called up and created into a lifeless walking corpse by this fucking Joker.
Yeah, it's awesome. And God, I mean, every panel is pretty terrifying on this page, honestly. Even the bottom left one, the fifth panel, because it does look like he's about to like break into song and lead them all away. But still, you're right. His insanity makes even the goofy panels scary. And that last panel is just unsettling. How the Zuvembis just drop to their knees. And it's super scary. And the panel of him with the skull mask over his face too it's eerie and unsettling, because you're right. I mean, he thinks it looks cool, and it does. It looks pretty scary.
And up on my first read through it, up to this point, I wasn't sure if this was a living incarnation of a Loa, like he was actually a skull-headed thing. But then once DeZuniga gives you this close-up, like, yep, that's just a crazy fucking dude.
Yeah, that's a mask.
And that's what it got scarier to me.
I fully agree. So we see on the next page, Moench's prose here is so awesome. I'm just going to read it. So
do it.
It says, and the soil comprising the cemetery's single undefiled grave begins to tremor and shift, spews upward and spattering clots as twin hands punch from its unfathomable depths, hands followed by the slowly methodical rise of a dirt-crusted body, a body which sheds streaming showers of grave soil until it stands revealed as. So up until this point, like, goddamn, as far as like rising from the grave, this looks different. It's almost like, we get the normal, like the hands coming out of the earth, but then he just like angrily shoots out of the earth. Like, it's not a slow, like, but it's just fuck. It looks like he's leaping out of it at first. And it's and we reel, it stands revealed as, we hear off panel, Papa Jambo. And final panel, Jambo says, "Who spoke? A fire, a wall of flame?" So obviously we know who's coming. And I mean, and how connected Jericho Drum is with Papa Jambo, like, and we see on the next page, but because we know that relationship so well, like the way he fights on the next couple pages is just like, oh man, I mean, you couldn't make him angrier.
Yeah. The art on this page is exceptional. Like that second panel with the hands, the detail of the hands bursting out of the soil. And then this strange camera shift where we jump around, where it's two different angles of this character coming out of the grave. Absolutely amazing. And this is Exhibit B, by the way. So if Charles Lejeune is Papa Jambo, how did he visit Sarah 2 times and kill her on the second visit and kidnap his own daughter, all while resisting Dramabu's Zuvembi magic?
That's right. You're making a case here.
So whoever made that website, be better. Okay, be better.
Yep.
And then, like you said, Brother Voodoo is surprised to see Papa Jambo. If Papa Jambo were Charles, Brother Voodoo already knew that he was up and walking around. So double the dose of evidence on this, that Papa Jambo and Charles Lejeune are 2 different characters. We haven't got into their physical appearance yet. So, okay, so pretty dope top row here. Voodoo drums start playing ethereally. Yes, Evil One, flames, the flames which spawned me, Brother Voodoo, as he's charging towards us in this triptych. I miss those drums, man. I miss drums going dum 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 as he does cool stuff. And this is the only time where, in this whole thing, I kind of miss color, because that is clearly a wall of flame, and you don't get that as much with white, but it still translates. And we get a huge panel for most of the bottom with a little inset. I know not your reason for desecrating Papa Jambo's peace, but I swear to you, you shall pay for the act with your blood. And immediately the villain launches into villain mode. Stop him, my brothers. Dramabu commands you. And I love this little inset panel down here. It says, his voice crackling in strident panic, Dramabu exhorts his soulless legion forward. Yeah, he just did that. But and Brother Voodoo folds his lithe body into a supple crouch. Meager sparks glint in his hardened eyes as he awaits the zombie's relentless advance. kill him. They're literally switching between zombies and Zuvembis within the story. It's so absurd.
I know.
But that last panel, I love that perspective of being behind Dramabu, where he's just mostly shadow. That's cool.
Oh, it's really cool. But yeah, how infuriating. Why do we get a zombie at the bottom? Why?
It happens again, too. It's just kind of throughout.
No, it is. But yeah, like I was talking about on the next page, so I'm just calling them zombies. The zombies swarm Jericho. And it says still the zombies shamble forward, unified in a common cadence of mindless shuffling, a ghastly parody of military discipline, which I loved that. I thought that was a really cool, really cool thing from Doug. And it says, when the bilious stench of the foremost zombie reaches Brother Voodoo's flared nostrils, he acts, releasing his taut sinews in a leap which crushes the hideous face of death. A lot of kicks in this issue, and I did like that. And just the way that Tony does it, they feel like they hit harder than fists. You can hear the crack. You can feel the impact, which is cool. I mean, and I'm sure that's difficult to convey as well as DeZuniga does it here, but no shock. Third panel, then the second zombie is upon him, and he meets its erratic advance with a fist solidly planted in its abdomen. The zombie spasms, doubles forward, and then folds Brother Voodoo's fist in a mire of maggot-squirming flesh. Oh, man.
This is full Lucio Fulci, gross out.
It is.
Zombie
That's
gore.
what I loved, is that once the actual fight starts, Tony's art is amazing and horrifying, and Doug goes full horror. Yeah, you're right. It's just it's gross and amazing. Yeah. Bottom panels, once more, Brother Voodoo kicks out, and as his knee stuffs into the zombie's belly, he can think of nothing but the horrifying fact that once, as a child, he had known these men, laughed with them, played with them, and then the thought is swiftly drowned in an inexorable tide of swarming death. They descend on him now, groping and clawing, their brittle fingernails gouging deeply into his flesh.
That page is wild.
So, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, just brutal fights, and narration just really, really hitting home with the disgusting nature of this fight.
And that note, right, of these are familiar faces. These were just guys that were around town when he was a kid growing up.
That's crazy.
Yeah, just adds a stake. But you actually skipped over one of my favorite parts, the grossiness of the first thing. They lurch and stagger forward on legs, hobbled with rife decay, their empty eyes crusted with white pustulence, their separating flesh hanging in ragged tatters of oozing fungus.
Oh, it's awesome.
That is literally just an Italian zombie magnet set for your fridge.
Fucking gross.
Just of gross stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I do like that he's very kick heavy. He's like Batroc.
He is in this whole issue. Yeah. Batroc.
Okay. So it's a numbers game, as it has been before. Again, there's lots of echoes of Strange Tales 171, the Baron Samedi issue. They finally bear him down to the ground in a confused tangle of flailing putrid limbs. And I love this close-up of him with this glinting in his eyes as he struggles only for a moment against the clawing mass of death, and then he summons his supernatural control of fire. And why the hell did he not do this in Strange Tales 171 or any other time when the Talons henchman grabbed him?
I know.
So he just goes full Johnny Storm supernova. The flames burst to life as though blossoming from the Voodoo Master's heart, and they engulf his writhing tormentors in a searing veil of putrefaction. And I love that. They just immediately, it's like cremated instantly. It's so hot.
No.
The air fills with a sputtering crackle of simmering moisture. So it stinks to high heaven too.
Yeah.
The fetid stench of burning flesh, then all is still. The veil of fire dances and capers soundlessly, its fuel consumed. And then he, like the Energizer Bunny, he just pops up and just starts sprinting towards Dramabu again.
I know.
Unscathed, save for the wounds inflicted earlier by the zombies. Not Zuvembis, the zombies.
I know. I know. But yeah, that third panel, God, it's just like a nuclear blast kind of thing. Like they're just it looks like they're reduced to ash. Like it's fucking crazy.
I love that second panel though, where like it's almost like in the Incredible Hulk opening sequence, title sequence of the show, where it's like, oh shit, he's going full nuclear.
Yeah, he is. No, it's great. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I think the fire works a little better in those middle panels than it did in the entrance, but still, I guess that is one thing that I would miss because, you know, it would look really cool in color.
Yeah.
But yeah, next page we get another one of great depictions of Jericho. Yeah, just soft and haunted. And it says, and he is alone. Jericho thinks Papa Jambo, Sarah's daughter, the other Zuvembis, and the one who calls himself Dramabu. All gone, but they will not be hard to follow. And when I find the one called Dramabu, he shall consort more intimately with death than he thought possible. So yeah, I love this. I love Brother Voodoo as tracker.
Yeah.
I don't know if I guess we saw a little bit of that when he, but no, I like this especially. He's like looking at footprints in the second panel. It's really cool. I mean, as little as actual happens on this panel, this page, it's still gorgeous. Because he follows this trail that says leading to the precipice of a sheer cliff towering over a bed of jagged rocks far below. And he sees Dramambu saying, "Now, my brothers, now that the interloper has been slain, we may resume the rites of sacrifice."
I love this page.
It's great, right? It's so gorgeous. And, sometimes, and we don't try to do this. We're not, we are contrarian by nature, but not in this way. And I feel like a lot of times, especially with the great artists, when we're like, we fucking love this page. And someone's like, what happens on it? We're like, Jericho walks on a trail.
Yep. Yeah.
But it's so masterful.
Sometimes you don't have to eat a world just to make, have a cool page.
Damn right.
I mean, this thing to me, like I would love this without the word balloons, just the raw. I mean, like that portrait of him again, this whole thing that DeZuniga is doing through this whole thing of these thoughtful, like these calms in the storm, these beats where everything just kind of collects itself and comes back into focus and he's centering. That's fucking gorgeous. And like you're saying, the tracker mode, like trying to think of what in 170, what was he doing? Did they just say drive a Jeep until you can't drive anymore and then hike into the jungle and then you'll find Papa Jambo? Like it was that vague. It was like that door sketch on Kids in the Hall, like steal a car. Yes. I have a car. No, steal a car, drive it until you run out of gas in the desert. But here he's tracking. He actually has purpose. And I love that he's just like, as he's mentally like, I'm going to take this dude apart. First of all, I love that he can be lethal because it's a magazine. Mm-hmm. So he's saying, this guy stole and plans to murder my friend's daughter. I'm going to kill him.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like a, see what I can do. See if we can arrest him and get like, nope. He shall consort more intimately with death than he thought possible. And
yeah. No, he's dead.
God, that's badass. And he breaks a branch off a tree as he's just running like a jackrabbit through the woods, like just grabbing any weapon just available. God, he's so cool.
Yeah, he is.
And Spore, that Spore is easy to follow.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen that since our old friend Jack.
That's right. That was the last time we read something like that.
And lastly, this last panel, I mean, like, I don't know if there's stuff like this in Haiti, but this is like the most dramatic cliffhanger, like serial location for a showdown ever. This cliff. God, it looks so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, you're right. It's such an epic trope, in a way. Like this same cliff is probably in the Perils of Pauline.
Totally.
Yeah.
So on the next page, finally, Brother Daniel gets to act, and it says, Brother Voodoo thinks, Dramabu forces Papa Jambo Zuvembi to murder the child, must summon the Loa spirit of my murdered brother Daniel. Daniel leaps out of him, and this top row here is I guess it would be a diptych thing divided into two. Mm-hmm. And I love this just gentle wash of ink like super diluted to shade Daniel's spirit. And he is leaping towards Papa Jambo, who is holding the ceremonial knife over his head, standing above Charles's daughter. And he leaps into his form, and he penetrates Jambo's corpse. We have to remind him that this is a dead body, again, animated.
Mm-hmm.
He possesses it just in time to halt the dagger's downward plunge, mere inches from the unconscious child's breast. I love that extreme close-up and all the fine line detail work of shading on the clothing and his hands. It's just gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
As Jamabu says, "Don't stop! Kill her, I command you!" And Brother Voodoo has his arms folded. "No longer do you command him." He whips his head around, great detail. It's all gross. That skull mask is like, that's where I wonder, like, okay, is this a skull mask? Or did he go full Ed Gein and dig up some graves and like make a fucking like mask out of literal skulls?
That's what it looks like there.
And he says, "You!" He says, "Yes, Jamabu and Papa Jambo's body is now in my command." And Papa Jambo, under Daniel's command, throws a knife at Jamabu. So further evidence here, by the way. Papa Jambo and Charles Lejeune look nothing alike. The guy we've been seeing has like a Banerjee Krebs beard and short hair. Papa Jambo has long white hair, and he's wearing like a tunic, like whatever he wore when we saw him in life. He was buried in what he wore, which is like kind of like a tunic or like a gunny sack. Like he lived like a poor, like a monk almost.
Yeah.
So again, you get not the same character, guys. Be better.
No, not at all.
Be best, actually, as a former first lady.
Be best. So, third panel there. Yeah, the way that his robes are. This looks like an etching that William Blake would have done for like the Book of Job or something. Like it really does. Like it has that feel.
Yeah. Wow, that's a great call.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just, I have looked at those etchings within the last year, and yeah, it is. It totally evokes that.
Well, still, that's good. Hit the showers. You're good. You did.
Thank you.
You're done.
Thanks so much. Yeah. So yeah, next page, we see it. The dagger just sails past Jamabu. So I love it. The dagger hurtles past Jamabu harmlessly. Brother Voodoo summons Daniel's spirit from Papa Jambo's corpse as Jamabu shrieks in rage, "Attack him! Kill him!" And once again, the corrupt legion of death marches on Brother Voodoo as the spirit of his dead twin streaks toward him. Streaks then swerves away from him, diverting its ethereal flight toward the slowly moving ranks of zombies. So this was a big like, oh shit, like this is bad. Like we haven't seen this before, right?
Yeah. No, this is a first.
Yeah, I mean, Jericho has always been in complete control of Daniel.
Or
so then,
seemingly.
Seemingly, yes. And so, it hovers for a moment there in the thick gloom, then descends into the center of the ranks, possessing an unseen member of the Walking Dead. And Jamabu says, "Impossible," or Jericho says, "Impossible. Daniel's spirit has been wrenched from my control. It moves of its own will." But the Lord of the Living Loa has scant time to dwell on the phenomenon, for the zombie horde presses closer and he raises his bludgeon to greet them. I think we have more zombies than Zuvembis at this point, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't been keeping a count, but yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, we'll find out on the next page. But in reading this, when I was at this page, I was like, oh shit, like this is bad. Like he doesn't have control of Daniel. Like this is not a good thing.
Yeah, this is an exciting development. And I love that last panel, by the way, where it looks like
too.
his baseball card.
It does.
Except it's
so
not
stats on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote "fuck you" on the bat in Sharpie, so that card's worth a whole bunch of money. I just showed my age there, didn't I?
Yeah, there you go.
So on the next page, it says, before he can swing that bludgeon, however, he hears, and then from within the horde of zombies, a voice says, "Stop!" And Brother Voodoo says, "That voice, can it really be?" And then we see a close-up of Charles. He says, "Yes, Jericho, and though I am dead, somehow life has returned to me. Perhaps it is the grief of slaying my own wife which has transcended death, or perhaps the Loa have taken mercy on me and granted me a chance to save my daughter's life." Again, just to... Papa Jambo, not this guy.
Not this guy at all.
No. And so then Brother Voodoo just leaps into action. The zombies engulf Brother Voodoo then as Charles speaks on calmly as though oblivious to the Voodoo Lord's peril. And so Brother Voodoo's just hacking and slashing at these guys with this tree branch. And Charles says, "Put down your club, my friend. With it, you may harm only these pitiful Zuvimbis, the mindless puppets of evil, when it is Dramabu, the one who controls them, the one who has forced my dead body to slay my wife, who should feel your wrath." So he's speaking logic to Brother Voodoo in this intense situation. I love this bottom panel here. He looks so badass. It looks like something from like Sandman or something like that. He's standing there among these slain corpses as they're kind of just overwhelming Brother Voodoo. And he says, "Dramabu preaches against the evils of the new way, when in truth he lusts only for power and a position of wealth and influence in the new order he falsely condemns." So Charles has some insight into this, that his whole speech, his whole political whatever is complete bullshit. And he's just power mad, like a lot of, unfortunately, like a lot of people who claim to be for the little man are.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have this beautiful close-up of him, his gross, grotesque corpse, animated corpse. The last panel, "He's evil, my friend. Look at these corpses before you. Consider what he has done with them. Consider how he has profaned the dead flesh of Papa Jambo." If he was Papa Jambo, why would he refer to himself in the third person, Jacob? I don't know.
Weird, right?
It's because he's Charles Lejeune. And then, "Spare him no mercy, rather than attacking innocents with a club which only betrays your own inner weakness." That kind of rocked me back on my heels a little bit there. That part where he says, "You're doing this the physical way, the meathead way, and you're weak. Like,
you're being weak."
We've never had Jericho Drum impugned by anyone before.
Nope. He's not wrong, though. I mean, Charles has such his speeches on the next couple pages are really moving. Like, and it comes from the reanimated corpse of a man who murdered his wife and was about to murder his child. And so, it's really intense.
And this page was absolutely perfect, starting with the panel looking through Jericho's legs at the where the voice is coming from, the zombie horde. I mean, everything is just perfect on this page.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially, God, Charles' face in that bottom right. God, it's so perfect.
Yeah.
So next page. So Charles goes on to say, says, "Look at him even now, my friend, as he again attempts to reach my daughter and murder her that he might gain further power. I am ashamed of you, my friend, that you have fallen helpless to his pawns when you have ever possessed the inner resources to deal with him." Jericho says, "What do you mean, Charles?" Charles says, "I suddenly feel power, Jericho, power that you have always possessed, power to reach across death and save my daughter at the expense of my returned life." Yeah, really powerful. The narration says, "And through the chaos of battle, Brother Voodoo catches sight of Charles' abandoned body and shifts his attention to the swiftly streaking spirit which has left that body, left it to possess the unconscious form of Charles' daughter, even as Dramabu's gleaming dagger slices an arc toward her breast, a potentially lethal arc which is intercepted before it can pierce its target in blood." Yeah, this whole sequence from last page and this page, God, really fucking cool. Like, this is, I mean, narrative-wise, like, I don't know, Doug's prose in this is really, and his dialogue, especially from Charles Lejeune, is really hitting home.
I agree. And what he's doing with Daniel as a part of this character is so cool in this story. I mean, we'll discuss it more at the end, but I mean, it seems to me that Doug is proposing, Daniel was Brother Voodoo much longer than Jericho has been, and he might have some things to teach him. And so he's just kind of saying, "Fuck it, you're not figuring this out fast enough. I'm going to have to do my own shit." And so he jumps into Charles, gives Charles an opportunity, a voice to say things. Like, it seems like Daniel's largely the hero in this story, if I'm reading it wrong.
No, I don't think you're reading it wrong at all. I feel like Charles is saying, and maybe, maybe it's Daniel through Charles also. It's just, Daniel showing Charles exactly how much power he has and that Brother Voodoo hasn't quite used it. Because, you're right. In the past, he'll invoke Daniel, send him off to go into some goon, so the goon freezes and Brother Voodoo can get him, or has the goon like
or cut his ropes,
punch another goon, or cut his ropes or something. And Daniel's just been doing like all the little kid chores. And Charles is just like, no, he is much more powerful. And if you send him into someone who is good, which you have not really done yet, like, you can do that, right, dumbass?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I mean, he like you're saying, he's treating him like a Roomba or like a nanobot or something like that. And like just to do, like Tony Stark would do. And it's like, there's a magic component here that you're not understanding, that there's multiplicative powers. So when you apply these in different ways, they have almost like alchemy or something like that. They have different outcomes. And all you've done so far is just kind of do parlor tricks, essentially, with me.
Basically, yeah.
So the daughter's hands with Daniel's animation have reached up and grabbed Dramabu's striking arm before he can kill her. Dramabu says, "What is happening? The child is forcing my arm back with the strength of 10 men." I thought that was fascinating because we were judging by what we've seen thus far. When Brother Voodoo and like when Jericho and Daniel are bound together, we kind of roughly estimate, like, I don't know, maybe like double the power, maybe the power of 3 men. But all of a sudden, things are different here. Now it's like this little girl is as strong as 10 men by judging by this guy. And so Brother Voodoo thinks Daniel's spirit has possessed the child's body of its own will, but he will summon his Zuvembis, overwhelm the girl. So Brother Voodoo's tripping out and realizing, wow, Daniel can act on his own? News to me.
Right? It's a big deal.
And so he starts sprinting, and again, you get some 2 panels here of just wildly cool, like, perspective of just showing how lithe he is, and he's just sprinting. He's like a cheetah. He's so fast. And then that bottom left panel, I mean, it's another one of those kind of just crazy cool perspectives where it looks like Keep on Trucking or something like that, right? Like some kind of crumb hippie running. And he says, and thus I must exercise my control of fire and break free to aid her. So I did feel like we missed something between panel 2 and 3, which was cool, which is where, again, it's a long story, so I know why we didn't show it, but like there's Charles' smoking head and the rest of the zombies are lit on fire. So like between panel 2 and 3, he just used his fire powers and just like immolated just all of the undead around him to free himself up.
Yeah.
And I love that he's burning like painlessly, like, with no harm to him. And he's just covered in fire because he just went supernova.
Yeah.
And he says, but now they've reached the precipice, and though Daniel's spirit has granted the child greater strength than Dramabu, will I reach them both in time before they both fall to their deaths. The last panel, exciting beat here. He runs up to the edge of the cliff. Desperately, the Voodoo Lord reaches the 2 struggling forms, and with a brutality born of outrage, strikes the false Death Lord and says, "Pow! And now I must," as he sends Dramabu flying over the edge of the cliff. Swak.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this whole thing, this whole thing about Daniel that Doug is bringing up is really fascinating. Like definitely the second time through I read this, it hit me more of just like this. If this story had continued, this could open up a whole new avenue of story ideas, upping the stakes even more, having Daniel have more agency. And yeah, not just be like a fucking Roomba like you're talking about, but because you're right. I mean, as far as Brother Voodoos go, Daniel was powerful and he had done that job for a long ass time. So yeah, it's been stupid for Brother Voodoo not to tap into Daniel's actual power. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a great thing, and I wish it would have gone on.
Well, I mean, another thing it's just hinting at, like we were, kind of talking about on the last page, is like, so does the power multiply when it's positive, when it's love, when it's for something good? Like, who knows what they could achieve together? He's been using him for violence and to prevent more violence, or to prevent evil from spreading. Who knows what would happen if he turned it around? Black Lodge, White Lodge, right?
It is, and that's exactly what I thought when it said that. Yeah, let's drink for a Twin Peaks reference. I'm gonna drink the rest of my shot here. No, but where she's, the strength of 10 men, this little girl. So you're right. Maybe when Daniel is entering into someone, love, or who is a good person, the power just gets amped up even more.
I love that note.
That's awesome. Yeah, on the final page, so Jericho grabs the girl as Dramabu falls to his death. It says, or Jericho says, seize the girl before she follows Dramabu into death on the rocks below. And so, yeah, Dramabu just, he's dead. So drink to a villain being killed. First appearance.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And how Midsommar is that scene down there?
Oh, God, it's fucking awful.
That dude's just a pile of goo behind that rock.
Yeah, he's just broken goo. Yeah, it's fucking disgusting. But then it says, concurrent with Dramabu's violent death, the horde of zombies crumples to the ground, finding peace for a second time as Daniel's spirit leaves the girl to reunite with Brother Voodoo's body. Then, as Daniel's spirit completes its merging with Jericho's body, and as the child lapses once again into unconsciousness, Brother Voodoo is stunned reverie as shattered by a familiar voice. And we see Bamboo. Master, I could wait for you no longer. Are you well? Jericho says, yes, Bamboo, I am well, but my spirit is unsettled, for I have learned something this night. Learned that there is still much I must learn from my dead brother Daniel. And then, single tear at the bottom. We get the fin on the little gravestone. And this could have gone so many cool places after this. It could have gone amazing places.
How is this the swan song for this character?
Fuck, man. We keep saying that, but goddamn, this was wrong. This was a bad call.
This story, though, I mean, we dug what came before, but this vault of this broke open this pinata to holy shit. I mean, there's so much you could do here. And I just love that kind of weird note of Daniel being fused to his brother's soul. It's not like he absorbed his brother. His brother's soul lives independently within him and is just bound to him. So they don't just it's not like some type of weird fusion. He lives separately and independently and doesn't even inform Jericho of things. He doesn't know everything Daniel knew. This has so much gas in this tank.
Yeah, it does. I know. It's such a bummer.
Yeah. So, apparently he just existed for Fred Hembeck to make fun of for 10 years before he...
a decade.
Yeah. And then he actually drew him. And what was that called? In 1990, they did volume 2 of Marvel Superheroes, I think is the name of it. And it's a anthology book. And Fred Hembeck drew in a straight comic style of Brother Voodoo story. We might need to cover that at some point, maybe next season, just as a little bonus thing.
That's a great idea.
It's 6 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, how much had you seen Fred Hembeck draw straight?
Rarely ever.
Yeah. I almost always see him draw cartoony style, so it was weird to see.
I loved his style when I was a kid. I loved Fred Hembeck.
His cartoony stuff?
Marvel Universe. Yeah.
I did too, but again, Brother Voodoo is one of those characters that I knew about because of Werewolf by Night, and so I liked him. And so whenever he would make fun of him, in Marvel Age or wherever what was his stuff in? Was it Marvel Age?
Yeah, I mean Marvel Age and some of the fan stuff
it just pissed me off. So I have this negative knee jerk that fucking guy. Whenever somebody says Fred Hembeck, I'm make fun of make fun of Brother Voodoo. Fuck that guy. I'm he's okay. He was a little goofy. He was a little goofy character.
He does apologize for it.
He does. And I think he actually kind of came around.
Yeah, he did come around. He made good.
So I forgive him.
Yep.
So final thoughts here. I mean, I think this is the fourth time I read this. And I'm liking it more and more each time I read it.
Me too, and I'm liking it. I mean, I liked it before, but even talking about it with you, it just makes me appreciate all the different parts of the story. And obviously the art. I mean, we knew the art was going to be, it was going to be amazing because it's Tony DeZuniga. But Doug, you're right. I mean, Doug shines in the Curtis Mags. Yeah. His prose, he doesn't have to hold anything back, and his I don't know. But it's interesting, between the depiction that Tony does of Brother Voodoo and this kind of inner understanding that we're gaining of Daniel, I mean, it's a different story. It like every Brother Voodoo story, he summons Daniel, he beats the shit out of some people, and saves the day. And I like that, that Daniel is kind of telling him that basically, through Charles, that no, this is you're being wrong. Like you're wrong. It's like violence and death is not where your real power lies. And you need to be smarter about this shit. So, I mean, that in itself makes this one of the best Brother Voodoo stories, really.
I agree 100%. And I feel like, again, each time I read this, I understand this. Moench's script is amazing. Each time I read it, I get something more out of it. And this time you're making me really realize, like, that wasn't just Daniel giving Charles a chance to speak from beyond the grave. It's almost like where their sympathies as people lined up, it like channels that message. So what Daniel believes and feels and Charles believed and felt like line up, where he's like saying, I'm ashamed of you. And it's not just Charles, it's Charles and Daniel saying, you're approaching this in such a juvenile way. You have a little bit of power and you're using it in the most sophomoric sense you possibly could. You have no idea the power you have and what you could be doing with this. And I'm bummed. You're bumming me out, little bro.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The more you read it and the more you read Charles' speech, you realize that, no, I think it's a good way that you described it, to where they're aligned. It's both of them talking.
Yep.
But I didn't realize that so much of Daniel is in there until the second or third time I read it. And then I'm like, no, this isn't Charles just being like, be smarter. Yeah. This is Daniel being like, I'm ashamed of how you use me. Like, you're using me. You need to work with me. Yep.
It's like the same, that folk wisdom of like, you won't do anything under hypnosis that you wouldn't do whatever, like you won't pull your dick out in front of an audience full of people unless you want to. It's that same thing where it's like they're both like, this is what they both feel and think. So they can say it loud and proud when they line up, and he animates them. I mean, just looking at this last page here, I mean, that last panel with that single tear, I mean, there's some little things here that could be considered corny or whatever, but I mean, that's a cool beat. Graphically, it's fucking gorgeous. Looking at the panel right above that, there's a scratchy shading as Bamboo's running up towards Jericho. His style just evolving and just stretching and just being playful, and it feels like he's having fun here, and it feels like he's stretching out and trying new things and just doing things for the sake of doing them because he loves art. And when it's a good story like this, it really shows.
Yeah, it's amazing. I loved this issue a lot. And more even now that I've just spent it talking with you. I appreciate it even more.
Me too. And and this almost makes up for that Marvel team up. Moondog.
Almost.
Almost.
Not quite though.
I can't wait to make my list. There's got to be some dishonorable mentions.
I hope so. That's a good idea. Okay, let's remember to do that. Dishonorable mentions. Parts of the series that you considered the worst. I don't know. I believe he teams up with the Thing at some point. I don't know if we want to do that maybe in the future. Maybe, I don't know. Just thinking about it bums me out.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of disinclined. Like when it was It the Living Colossus or Golem, I mean, it's kind of funny because Golem's stupid. So like,
yeah, Golem's stupid. So it's awesome. But
it was funny just to read
Voodoo's,
that and laugh.
Yeah. But I'm not into it.
I don't think that Jericho Drum and Ben Grimm should be in the same room together.
No.
not dramatically, at least.
No, not at all.
We'll probably just skip that and call this good for right now.
Yeah.
However, in that Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme issue 16 I was talking about, the main story was something that you and I have talked about a couple times about maybe possibly reading at some point if we ever want to venture into the late 80s. But it is about vampirism coming back in the Marvel Universe after it had been eliminated by the I forget what that formula was. Montesi formula or whatever.
Montesi, yeah.
But Brother Voodoo's in it, and he looks pretty awesome.
Cool.
So I think it's Jackson. I forgot how you say his name. Geis.
Oh yeah, Geis. Yeah.
Art. So I mean, it's great art, and it's Roy and his wife. So we might at some point do that. But that's I think the next time he shows up like significantly. was like 88, 87 when that story happens. So maybe in some
Jeez.
future season, we can do that as a bonus thing. But I feel like this is a great way to send this character off for us.
It is. No, it is. I'm really glad we were able to do this and that we're able to show the art, and you've done what you're going to do with this episode, which I know is going to be great.
Sweet. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this and following along. We'd love to hear if you like this. Leave a little note here, either on YouTube or on the Patreon post for this, wherever you want to. We just we want you to know that we appreciate you and your support of the show, and we love doing this stuff because we love the medium, obviously, but we also love to share this with you guys and kind of talk through this stuff because we appreciate you and your support of the show. So thanks again for all you do, and yeah, we'll see you on the next bonus.
Thanks, everybody.